So hi everyone, welcome to the first Burn Within show. We've got a small audience here to join me and Nick Condon, who is. I met Nick a few weeks ago. We were doing a course together, and what really resonated with me after starting this community is that he really has traveled that journey from corporate to living a life where has more balance, but more importantly, he's actually created a business that he's passionate about. And most of you here, I think, in the audience right now, and also those that will be listening to this, the recording, you love adventure, you love travel, you love doing things, you want to do things out of your comfort zone. And Nick's like the perfect example of how to do that and how to make that transition. So this show is going to be a little bit interactive. I've got people here who are from the corporate world. There's people that have quit their corporate career after almost 20 years, and they're looking to find their passion and build something from that. We've also got some digital nomads who are earning money and living a different lifestyle from the corporate world, but perhaps they want to earn money doing what they love and following their passions. And so for all of these people, I'm hoping to serve you all and sharing some amazing wisdom from Nick, and also for you to share with each other and relate. And this is what this is all about. So I think someone else has joined. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Nick Condon. And Nick, tell me a little bit about your journey and where you were a few years ago in corporate IT, and kind of play out, I guess, what kind of made you decide to take a year out and then see what happened after that.
All right. Well, thank you, Matt, for having me on your first episode and on your show. I really love what you're doing. I think it's fantastic to inspire other people to make a change in their life and do something they're really passionate about. For me, my background was IT. I was in an IT career for about 10 years. I'd studied engineering before that and sort of had a bit of a career change. But it was about probably 6 or 7 years into my IT career, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I've really always wanted to take a year off and travel. And I continually talk myself out of it. Oh, look, I'll wait till 7 years is up. And in Australia, once you clock up 7 years with the company, you start to earn what we call long service leave, where at 10 years you can take 2-4 months off. So I thought, I'll wait till I've got 7 years and then I get some extra money. And that went into 8 years, and then that went into 9 years. And I felt like the whole time I'm telling myself that I can't take this time off. I should have done it when I was 22, when I had nothing to worry about, and I could have got a work visa in the UK and whatever else. Telling myself all sorts of things. And there just came a point, probably at about 9.5 years or 10 years in the job, where I just said one day, I'm going to sit down with a manager. I'm going to take a small step, sit down with a manager and say, I want to take a career break. Because I'd been brought up to believe the career was really, really important, and that you had to know what you were doing to.
Hello, Nick. Ooh. Seem to have lost lost connection there for some reason.
Yeah, I've lost connection with Nick.
Ah, okay. I think he's actually, he might have dropped out, so he'll join. Oh, you're back again. Awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
I sat down with my manager.
So we just lost connection with you for a sec, Nick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I sat down with my manager and yeah, they okayed it. And yeah, it took the year off, and that's how, well, it took 18 months off actually, but that's how that's kind of my background to that point.
And I mean, could you talk a little bit about what kind of got you to that point of I need to take a year off? Because I remember you saying, you know, you had a lot over the 10 years at your job. You kind of got more and more responsibility and worked your way up, and there was a lot of stress, right? There was a lot of I mean, did you feel like you were burnt out, and what was going on from that respect?
Wouldn't say burnt out. I'd almost like, I've heard it someone describe it as bored out, really.
Bored out, right? Yeah.
Because it's I could do the job backwards, and I guess I started off my IT career with a view to being someone that was highly technical and that could use those skills to help people. The trouble was, when I reached that point, a year or two at that point, I sort of went, now I don't know what to do. Like, I've had this, I've wanted to get to this point for 5 or 6 years, and now I'm here. Oh, well, now what? And it was, I kind of lost my way, really, and sort of jumped around from management roles, then back into IT architecture, and then across to being a design lead. So it's sort of, really, really not having much of a direction at all. And all the time in the back of my mind, I'm just thinking, I've got this burning desire to travel.
Right. And you were saying, and also I think you were getting some kind of chest pains as well from stress sometimes, and
so there was quite often I'd get a pain in my chest, and I'd almost, it'd be so severe sometimes I'd just have to sit down, and I went to the doctor a few times, and each time the question they'd ask me is, does it get worse when you exercise? And I'd say no. And they'd say, well, it's not a heart attack. I don't know what's going on. I've learned in later years it's actually anxiety that's happening in my body, and that's how my body's reacting. So highly anxious. I started to get anxious around my work, and not knowing where I was going or what I was doing.
Okay. So you asked your boss to, let's take some time out, a sabbatical off work, I guess.
Yes.
And then, so what happened in that year that you took out, or longer? What did you do after that?
Well, that year, I mean, we travelled, because I travelled with my partner Karen. We travelled totally differently to what we usually do. Usually it was about seeing the Taj Mahal, or seeing something that's almost ticking off a box. But what we wanted to do was experience life, and we set out to actually have not much of a plan. We had planned for 6 months in South America, 3 months in Europe, and 3 months in Asia, and really used that as our structure, and kind of went where the breeze took us. And I started off with 5 nights in Buenos Aires in Argentina, and took a 26-hour bus ride out to a town we just picked on a map, and yeah, just made it up from there.
And how did it feel like when you were in Argentina and doing this traveling with Karen? Like, how did it feel compared to when you were in corporate with the chest pains?
Yeah, it was kind of funny actually, because it's sort of I very quickly lost. Like, I kept in touch every month, emailing my work to kind of go, hey, yeah, here I am. I'm still here. If you know, just so you don't forget about me, sort of thing. Because that was part of the policy. That's part of what they wanted me to do. But I very quickly forgot about my life back home and sort of got into this, almost got into this mindset of having an adventure and sort of taking life day by day and deciding, you know, what we're doing next and how's that going to happen. And I guess to live like that and up until that, before that holiday, I'd lived in a state where I had to plan everything. Everything had to be, you know, there's a day there and I catch a flight here and there's a day there, and that's how I'd travel. And we'd move to a model where it's kind of like, okay, well, we've been here for 2 days and what's next? What are we going to do next? Oh, okay, we'll catch a bus down there and see what's down there. And so it taught me to be very, to still have very much of a vision of what I wanted to do, and that was have adventure and enjoy life, but to also take it one day at a time and not sort of fall into that fear of if I don't plan it all, then I'm going to miss out on something.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so then fast forward to towards the end of your sabbatical, and what happened then? You were due to go back to work, right?
So we'd completed the 12 months. We came back to Melbourne for a few weeks, and we had to fly to go to Townsville, where Karen's from, for a wedding. We booked a one-way flight, and we thought we'll do the adventure thing again. We ended up buying a camper van and spending 3 months driving down the east coast of Australia, looking for somewhere to live, to move to from Melbourne. And as part of that, during that time, there's about a month to go, and my boss said to me, "What are your, you know, this was sort of May 2013. You know, if you're ready to come back and how you going and all that sort of thing." And I said, "Look, I'd like to come back, but I'd like 6 weeks extra leave," because what I didn't tell him was in July, I was due to go back in June, but in July we'd scored a month's house sitting in New York in an apartment, so we weren't going to pass that up. So I asked for 6 months more. And the second thing I asked for was I wanted to work remotely. Before I left, the company was very much about allowing people work-life balance and working remotely and all that sort of thing. So I suggested, look, I live up near Byron Bay and fly in once a week for a day and work the other 4 days from home. And they went away for three weeks, deciding whether they'd allow me to do that. And I remember we're driving, he said to me, right, on Friday he'd emailed me at Friday at 1:30, I'm going to give you a call and catch up. And so I've made sure that, because this time we're driving on the way back to Melbourne, and I made sure that I was in the passenger seat, and we're just north of Coffs Harbour. We're driving along, and literally at 1:31 he called, and he said, I'm happy to give you a month extra. I'm not going to give you 6 weeks. And it's a no for working remotely. You're required in the office 100% of the time for your job. And he said to me, what do you think of that? And I said, I've made a decision to resign. So in the front of a camper van just outside Coffs Harbour, yeah, I gave my notice. and that was that. It was scary and exciting at the same time.
Right. And what, after you gave in your notice, obviously, what were your thoughts about what you're going to do next?
I didn't know.
Didn't know. Wow. Okay.
At that point, I didn't know. I just knew that I didn't want to do that. I'd been freelancing for the last couple of months doing websites for people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd made a little bit of money off that. I also had some savings left. So I sort of just said, well, I'll just, wing it and just see what happens, really. Yeah. So
Awesome. And just for anyone that's in the audience now, so maybe Patrick or Pete or George, I think some of you have quit their corporate job, that working in an office, and now either working remotely or they're looking to find their passion job, their passion in life. For those that are in the audience now, like, how did you feel when you made that transition from leaving a corporate, desk job to your situation now, that moment where you decided to leave?
So
sorry, I was just asking the audience, actually, Nick.
Sorry.
Just to kind of get people to relate.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
In the show. Come back to you there in a minute. Maybe Patrick.
Sorry, Matt, can you, I thought you were asking Nick the question. Can you pose the question again?
Yeah, so I'm just asking the audience, well, for those who've quit their corporate job and actually, looking for more of a life of balance, what was it like when you actually made that resignation? For you?
For me, it wasn't so much, I was going to say it wasn't so much of a decision, Matt. A bit like Nick was talking about, I guess I was in my role for 19 years, and very similar story. I just began over time to experience more and more anxiety, and it's a funny thing. Like in the earlier days, I could cope with it and had coping mechanisms, but I wished I had quit after 10 years in one industry. And I procrastinated about it for the best part of another 10 years. So,
wow. Okay.
Over that period of time, it was, for me, it was just like the level of anxiety, or the baseline of anxiety, would sort of gradually increase. And right towards the very end, I was still functioning in my role, although albeit just. And for me, it was, I wish I had funds sitting in my account, and it was a conscious decision initially to walk away. But I feel like, in losing my license, it sort of forced my hand to step back for at least 6 months from what I was doing. And just sitting here being completely honest with myself about my level of enjoyment, or instead of the burnout, the bore out. Over time, less and less connected with what I do, and I'm just realising the importance of having some level of passion or engagement with what I do for work. And for me, I'm acknowledging it just in terms of my own sanity and personal level of health. It's starting to become a necessity, and I do look at a lot of stuff, and I think it was Steve Jobs talking about the importance of having passion in what you do, because there's times where you just can't, it's like otherwise any sane person would give up. It's sort of, I'm looking to be engaged with what I do. And yeah, it's listening to, people like yourselves talking, it just reminds me the importance of caring about what you do, and it just even listening to you guys, I just light up. So I'm looking for something I can sort of start aiming towards, where I light up on a daily basis thinking about it, as opposed to sort of switching off, and the humdrum of day-to-day life takes its toll on you with pressure and stress. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, but thanks, Patrick, for that share.
I was going to say that I also when I quit my job in London, my corporate job in 2015, and I remember the feeling for me was like a combination of extreme excitement and sort of like it felt like a lot of pressure was off my shoulders. Because I used to go into work every day with a very sort of intense feeling of anxiety, because I had to make sort of sales calls day in, day out, and it was a high pressure kind of environment. And, you know, I was very sort of apprehensive about leaving the job for a very long time. But as soon as I did, I felt a real sort of release of pressure and a kind of extreme sort of rush of excitement, I guess. And then I actually quit my job and went to India for 3 months, a bit like a shorter version of Nick's journey, it sounds like.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that was great.
So thanks for sharing, Pete. I think the structure we're kind of like uncovering here is, you know, you might feel anxious in your job, and when you quit, there's a kind of euphoric feeling, or like a feeling of real happiness and liberation. But then also, it gives you, I think all of you have said, it gives you having the time out to think about what's important is a kind of key step to finding what you want in life. And with that, I'll go back to Nick, and from what Patrick said about, you know, how to find your passion, so that what you do each day you're looking forward to. So how did you get to that point, Nick, in terms of you quit your job? What happened next, and how did you know that the business that you've started was the one you wanted to do?
That's a good question. I guess I initially talking to some of my workmates who were still in the job that I'd left after I'd quit, and hearing them talk about, oh wow, you know, I wish I could do something else, but I've got no idea what that is. I think that had a real effect on me to sort of say, well, actually, maybe there is something in travel that brings about that clarity for people, that like it did with me. And although you know, it sort of took me 12 months, but I've found that it doesn't actually need to be 12 months for someone to connect to themselves and to really get that clarity. It's more so the change of environment and sort of the taking away the stimulation of you know, the doing work and having a routine, and taking away social media is another good one, and phones and internet, and just, you know, hiking I found tends to be the best activity for people to sort of get out of their head and really get into their body and into their heart, and sort of connect to what they want.
Yeah. And feel free, everyone, just to send a chat in the group for those who are live now, just to see if you relate to this, like taking time out, hiking, changing a routine. If you've done that, to kind of think, what do I want to do in life? If you relate to that, feel free to share in the chat. Yeah, carry on, Nick.
Yeah. So that, and I guess another thing too was I think discovering, if I'm being honest, like I'd always waited for a plan, waited for, you know, I'm not going to quit my corporate job until I know exactly what I'm going to do, exactly how I'm going to make money. And I don't think life ever happens like that. For me, it was almost having an inkling of what you want to do. You know, I knew that I wanted to create a company to take people traveling. So that's what I stepped forward and did. I've registered the company in April 2014, and then I thought, well, what I've got to do is I've got to run a trip, and it started off very touristy and very sort of run of the mill type stuff. But a mentor of mine used to say, action precedes clarity. So to actually step forward and take some action toward what you're feeling might be, toward your curiosity, really, because I was curious whether or not I could do this. It's the more action you take, the more steps forward you take, is sort of the clearer that vision and that all the clarity comes. Is what I guess I'm trying to say.
So I guess wanted to go back to your point about starting the company. You know, you said you knew you wanted to start a business with travel, right?
Yep.
How did you know you wanted that? Because it's a decision, like to start a company, right?
It's not I guess it's not an intellectual thing that I kind of thought, oh well, this is a great idea, or I've got it from someone else. It was just I can almost describe it like a feeling, like it was just a knowing. You know, it wasn't in my head going, gee, this I can write a business plan for this. This makes sense, and I know what I need to do. It was more, just having an inkling of, I kind of feel I want to go that way. I don't know why, but and it's that, yeah. That's the best way I can explain it. Yeah.
Okay. And so you started the company. Like, what was going through your head when you started it?
Well, I guess I don't know. I just wanted to start it, and I did the research, and I sat down, and now I've had people come up to me over the years and say, well, surely you went and worked for another travel company and for a tour guide. And it's like, there's always two paths. I believe there's always two paths to doing something. And the indirect path is to go and work for someone else and work out what I need to know and what I need to do to be a tour guide. But to me, that's indirect, because I wanted my own company. I wanted to say over where I took people and what I did with them. So the direct path for me was to sit there and say, okay, I need to set up a company. I need to go and see a lawyer. I need to see an accountant. I then need to work with some guys on the ground that can handle the booking side of things. So it was all kind of very logical how I went about it. And I did a course in first aid and made sure I knew about risk management and all that sort of thing. So I've covered a lot of it off and learned a lot along the way.
Yeah. And so, I mean, this show is all about building a life of moving from boredom and stress, maybe burnout, to passion, balance, and purpose. What was, when you started this travel company, what was your purpose behind it, and what would you say you were trying to achieve from it versus what was already out there in the market?
That's a good question, and that's been something that has been personally challenging for me, because I started this because I had such an aha moment overseas, so many aha moments about what I was personally capable of, and what I thought wouldn't work but actually somehow worked out, that I wanted to create not just something where you go along and let's do a cooking course and let's go and look at the Taj Mahal and let's go and do this. I actually wanted to create experiences, and this is what I do. I create experiences and trips to give people those same aha moments for themselves as we go along. So that started off. That was always my goal.
Right.
I guess that when I said personal battle, what's ended up happening is that I've tended to be someone that's had trouble backing myself and really believing in myself. And it was so. What tended to happen was that people would say, "Oh, great! You're going to India. I'd love to see this, that, and the other." And so I started to move away from what my purpose was, which was to take people on and have these amazing epiphanies and experiences, to more mainstream. And what I ended up finding was that I ended up competing with the bigger companies and who can scale and who can do it cheaper, and I end up losing my point of difference.
Right.
And I've sort of come full circle again this year and reconnected to what I want, and sort of done a lot of personal work on myself to sort of say, well, no, it's not about what anyone else wants now. It's about what I want to offer the world.
We're getting some questions from the audience about this aha moment, when you kind of changed your perception of your capabilities and started to move more towards what you wanted to do and your purpose. Where has that aha moment come from, and how have you changed since you went off track to getting back onto that, creating those experiences?
Oh, that's a good question. So I can,
Take your time to think about it if you need to as well.
So I think when you truly slow travel down, when you get people to really embrace the experience and be really in the moment, it gives them an opportunity to almost let their guard down a little. It's sort of, they start to talk about the deeper things. And normally you're going to work and you're writing emails and that sort of thing. You don't tend to sit with the guy next to you and say, "Oh, gee, I haven't always wanted to do this. What about you? You might on a drunken Friday night or something like that. But
yeah, right.
travel gets that. The type of travel I do gets people in that state where they're really relaxed and there's nothing else to do. So they've got to sit with themselves a lot. And there's two things that happen there. The first thing is that you personally get to sort of categorize and organize your own thoughts and your own mind a little bit. The other thing that happens is that you talk to other people, and it can just be as simple as a question that someone else asks you. That I could give you an example. We're walking. I'm walking along one day with a guy I used to work with, and he said to me, and we're out in the park. We're out doing a hike, and he said to me, he lived in Melbourne, one of the western suburbs of Melbourne. I've always wanted to live by the beach. I've always wanted to live in Torquay, and Torquay's 2 hours drive from Melbourne. And I said, well, why don't you? And he said, well, no one does that. Like no one travels, 2 hours each way to work. Like, you just can't do that. And I don't remember what the question was that I said, but I said something to him, and it was months later we caught up, and he turned around and said to me, I got it. And I said, I got what? He said, when you had that chat to me, you asked me a question, and that just, I let that bubble away, and that, you know, it made me realize that there's actually no reason why I can't go and live in Torquay. That I've actually sold the house, moved the family out there. I work 3 days a week in Melbourne. I work 2 days at home, and I surf every morning and every night, and I love my life. And that's the kind of aha moment that people can have
Right.
when they're traveling.
I think a lot of people, they get stuck in their bubble, right? Their route, like you said, your routine. You know, you just get complacent with life. I remember when I was in the corporate world, and I was in London, and I was getting the underground, the subway, the London Tube, they call it there, and just squeezing in, and, you know, being next to really sweaty people with bad BO, and it was almost like being in prison every morning and every night. And I was thinking, and I took time out when I went traveling, and then I came back to my corporate world, and I was like, how did I put myself through this? I couldn't believe I'd done it. And because I got used to it, I just thought it was normal, and I didn't see another way out until I experienced it myself, or in your case, someone asks you a question and it makes you rethink. So I definitely relate to, you know, opening up choices by talking to others and getting out of your normal routine is a great way of doing that. Feel free to, if people relate to that, and if they have any other methods that they've used to see a different perspective and see a way out of a situation they might not be happy with. Yeah, carry on, Nick.
Yeah, I don't know. Is there any other questions there?
Yeah. So in terms of your experiences then that you've created, I know you mentioned about to me privately about some of the experiences. One of them being headhunters. Tell us more about that.
Okay, so yeah, I've done the headhunters trip a few times.
What is that? Because headhunters for a lot of people are people that work in HR, right? In recruitment. So is that the kind of trips you're doing?
No, so this is a trip out to one of the far eastern states of India called Nagaland. And the state borders Myanmar, so it's really way over on the east. And Nagaland has, I think it's 16 or 17 different tribes. And up until the 1950s, they were still, all the tribes are still headhunting each other, and you know, it was quite fierce. It's actually one of the only parts of India that the Brits never sort of conquered, because it was just so gruesome and violent. But these guys now are in their 80s and 90s, and a couple of them have hit 100. Yeah, they've got each one's got a tattoo on their face, and they get the tattoo on their face when they do their first kill. So yeah, I've run a few trips out there, and yeah, it makes for a really interesting conversation.
Right. And in terms of an experience, do you speak to these people, or how does it work?
We do. So the first one of the first times I ran it, I wanted to create a tour where it got people used to the unknown. So, you know, we all fear, oh God, if I step forward without a plan, without knowing what I'm doing, that's scary. But the more you can be comfortable with the unknown, the more you can be comfortable with not knowing what's going to happen next,
Mm-hmm.
the more powerful you can create what you want in your own life.
Mm-hmm.
I believe anyway. So what I did was created this trip where we flew into one point in Nagaland, in Assam it was, which is one of the bordering states, and flew out of another point in Nagaland.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we had 12 days in between with absolutely nothing booked. And it worked really well. One of the guys I had with me I didn't expect him to sign up, because he's a painter by trade. He's quite, rational, and logical, sort of, it's just about, well, I won't say drinking beer because he doesn't drink beer, but, he's very, he's not open to anything else other than what he can see.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember taking him into the headhunters, and we've climbed into this room where there's about 6 of them sitting around this fire, and it's in this traditional hut where all the men meet. And we sat down and we talked to them for about 20 minutes, and we had our driver translating because none of them speak a word of English. We had they made us tea, and we had biscuits with them, as kind of really nice experience. And on the way back, we're in the car, and Chris, who's normally really, really talkative, is really silent. And I said, "You all right?" And he said, "Yeah, I am." And he said, "I'm just, I don't believe in energy. But my God, when I walked into that room, it had an energy. There is no other way I can describe it." And so it was a beautiful moment, because I sort of sat there and went, wow, this guy's opened up to something else. Like and he was right. Like it just had a feel about it, but to actually hear him verbalize it, like I never thought he would have said it.
I think, there's realizations that you get from being really out of your normal environment, really out of your routine, and also speaking to people that are really different, have different worlds, inner worlds, different mindsets. Like these headhunters have come from a different world, and to spend time in their environment and spend time with them, something will change unconsciously. You just don't know what that's going to be. And I think that kind of very much relates to your point of being comfortable with the unknown. Like what can come up when you are comfortable with the unknown.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Because I think, one of the lessons I learned from the headhunters is in talking to them, and I won't go too far into it, but he described, asked the question, what's it like? What's it like to cut someone's head off? It's sort of
wow.
And he goes into talks about it like it's making a meal. He's holding the guy down.
Oh my gosh!
Holding the guy down with arms and hands and legs behind his back, and just and he's doing the whole holding his hair and hacking his head off. And it's like, what that made me realize is that each one of us tells ourselves a story about what's normal and about how we think the world is. And sometimes change is as simple as challenging how you see the world and how you think it is. Because how you think it is is the way because that's the way you see it. But if you change it, the world changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think having these kind of experiences, it helps you to develop understanding between others, because often we have assumptions about other people, and we just don't know what their life is like. We don't know where they've come from or how they're thinking. And that's a very extreme example, but it kind of just shows, actually, there is a different way of thinking here, and maybe I can be a bit more understanding and start to think outside the box. I mean, that's still very uncomfortable, cutting someone's head off, but yeah.
It is. It's just, it's interesting. Like, it's something I chat about every day. It's like,
yeah, right. Wow. And so, where are you now with regards to your life, in terms of balance, in terms of passion, in terms of purpose?
I'm pretty on. I think I've got a pretty good balance. I'm pretty on purpose on what I want to do. A lot of some of the things I've struggled with in the last 12 months, just to really sort of be honest and share, have been around, that I've had to try and deal with a mindset of deal with not being, we get told, slammed by the social media and things. Oh, you've got to be working, 12-hour days, 16-hour days. If you're not working, blah, 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 you're not going to succeed. And I've had to work through that and become comfortable with, okay, well, I don't. I've just got to do, what I want to do. I've got to make the contributions that I want to make to the world, which is not, working 7 days a week and 12 hours a day. It's just not. And I suppose the other thing about the other realization I've had is really playing the long game. Not sitting here going, oh my God, I've got to book a trip, 3 months, and I've got to sell it out and blah, blah, blah. And, sort of being comfortable with just going, okay, let's play the long game. Like, I don't need to run a trip next month. What do I really want to do? What do I really want? How do I really want to contribute to the world? What do I want to bring to it? And not look for the shortcut, not look for the overnight success, but actually work towards who I want to be in the world and what I want to bring to it.
Okay, let's talk about creating balance and also sustainability. So a lot of people that either are thinking about leaving their jobs or doing something different, or they want to have more balance in their life and follow these passion projects. A lot of the time, if they take time out of working a full-time job, for example, they're worried about, how do I afford to, maybe they might be living off savings for a while, but then obviously savings will run out at some point. How did you, when you did quit your job and then you did start making this company, make it a sustainable route to create your business?
Well, one of the things I guess I did, when I started my business, one of the things I did was got myself a part-time job. And I kept on telling myself, I'm not going to be able to get a job in IT up here, where we are up on the north coast of New South Wales. So I just, I dismissed it initially, but I approached a couple of IT companies, really small IT companies up here, and said, I've got 10 years experience. I can help. and I told them I only want 2 days a week. You know, I don't want any more. I only want enough to cover my living, like cover my rent and cover my food. And that is it. And I had 2 of them actually offer me a job. And one I took, and I had the job for nearly 3 years. And I guess the deal I made with them was, like, I was very upfront. They said to me, "You're way overqualified for this because this was a phone support job." I said, "Yeah, I realise that, but this is not a career move. This is a lifestyle move." And I was very upfront. I said, "I run my own business. I'll take people on my own trips. And if it's a bit cheeky, but I said, if the people, you know, if it comes to it, my loyalty is with my business and running the trips." And, you know, my job's kind of secondary. And I was very honest.
That's very honest. Yeah.
Fortunately, they took me on. They tried a couple of times to push me to go 5 days because I turned out to be quite a good asset for them, and they wanted me there more. And I just kept pushing back and saying what I wanted. So I guess in answer to your question, I've sort of done a bit of a story there. But in answer to your question, for me, it was about deciding that my passion project was what was important.
Right.
And then building a way that I could do that around my life.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously I've left that role now. And that's another story, but yeah. That gave me it didn't allow me to get comfortable and kind of go, well, I'm making enough money to still go on holidays or still whatever. I literally was living dollar to dollar every week. They paid me just enough.
Right.
And I don't recommend that as a what do you call it? To inspire yourself, because that kind of negative inspiration of you've got to do your business, otherwise you don't have it. I found that just didn't work. It just doesn't work. Yeah.
We've got a question from the audience about thinking about your corporate lifestyle. Is there anything you miss from your corporate lifestyle? Because a lot of people, I mean, for me, I worked in a kind of team environment, and when I was working by myself for a while, I kind of missed the banter actually sometimes from my workmates. You know, working on your own at home, sometimes it gets tough. Like, what do you feel that? And is there anything else that you miss from the corporate environment?
That's about the only thing I miss, to be honest. The camaraderie that you get with your workmates. I've found I can replace that with. We live in a fairly small town, and I know, I can walk down the street and say good day to just about every person, and just about every person knows me by name. So I get around that by breaking up my workday with going down and for an hour and reading a book in the coffee shop and having a chat to people and really balancing my life that way and getting my social interaction that way. But yeah, nothing else, absolutely nothing else.
Okay. So now that you've made this journey, Nick, what's important to you, and what do you realize is important to you in life that maybe you weren't fulfilling before in your corporate role?
Relationship. So not only my relationship with Karen, but my relationship with all my friends, and really, maintaining that. And I think I said that in the video that I posted yesterday, that every second Tuesday night I run a pool night for a few of the guys in town, and everyone looks forward to it because they've all got kids and they've all got jobs and lives and stuff. And I guess although I've, working in the corporate world, going out and having a drink on a Friday night or that sort of thing, I had that, but to actually realize, to actually value friendship and maintaining connections and networking and relationship with other people, that's so important, because that's, and I think it's so easy to forget in the routine of work.
Right.
Reach out to your mates,
So before we kind of break into some more questions from the audience and get people to share as well their story, what would you say if you were advising someone who's maybe was in your position right now, so that they might be stressed, they might have anxiety, they might be fed up with their career and really want something different. What would you say to them now in terms of practical steps of what to do next to start following that path of passion and balance and purpose?
So for me, it was having time out safely. So taking a long-term leave, because if you have 2 weeks off or 3 weeks off, it's not enough time to sort of forget and to sort of create the void, create the space inside you to sort of realize and realize what you really want. So taking time out, and if for me it was travel, but if there's something that they've really always wanted to do, to follow that, it might be, I've had friends of mine say, they've been in nursing for 20 years and they've said, I really want to become an archaeologist. And I said, well, why don't you take a month off work, book a trip and go and work as an archaeologist for a month. And that really then is a really practical step to sort of say, well, okay, is that what I really want to do? Does the reality of what an archaeologist does match up with what the expectation is in my mind, or not? And it sort of really just answers that question. And if the answer is no, there's nothing lost, and it may spur something else to come up, and you never know. They might think of another idea that they want to do. But I think time out, and I think also to do it, maybe if you're anything like me, to do it in a way where you don't quit. Because if I'd have quit, I don't think I would have followed the path that I followed, because it would have just been too big a step, too scary to sort of go, but that's just me.
So when you say don't quit, you mean don't quit your day job straight away?
I think if you can get leave, you can get leave without pay or get leave long term, it quells that fear of, oh my God, what am I doing? For me, it was kind of like, well, I know I can walk away and come back. I've got a job to come back to if I want to. And the funny thing was, when I started my leave, I knew in the back of my mind, I knew in my heart, I wasn't coming back.
So it's a case of taking baby steps. Like if you have a curiosity of a passion that you want to follow, like archaeology, for example, it's taking the time out and testing the water, dipping your toe in the water, or even jumping in and finding out what it's like to swim there. Absolutely.
And I think change is like an elastic band, in that when you pull an elastic band, if you pull it too far, you can't hold it, and it pulls back. But if you only pull it a little bit, then the rubber starts to weaken and it starts to get used to being stretched by that much.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can put it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can so if you do small changes, then you're more likely to stick to them. Whereas if you kind of jump out, it's really easy to get fearful and sort of have to jump back.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you for that. Okay, so we're just past the hour mark of the show. So there's a few more questions from the audience. I mean, my intention was to take this to up to an hour and a half. It really depends on how long people can stay for, but we'll just see how it goes, see what happens. But I've got some great questions from the audience. Pete, you've just asked a question about being trapped. Maybe you can elaborate on that if you're on the line.
Yeah, hi. So I mean, I was curious about the IT support role and how long you were doing that whilst you built up the travel business. Because I'm doing something similar at the moment, actually. I'm working on a couple of businesses and I'm teaching online. So I'm earning, enough money to sort of, to get by, and also enough to save a little bit each month. I'm doing something quite similar in the way that, I'm treating this as a part-time job. And it's kind of like an afterthought. And I'm sort of, I'm really putting most of my time into my businesses during the day. So I was wondering how long you kept up that IT support role and how you sort of felt when you were doing that. Was it quite stress-free? Did you ever feel trapped in that? Or did it feel like something, was there always sort of, you're always working on your goals? Was there light at the end of the tunnel? All that kind of stuff. How did that whole process go? And, how long were you working in that role?
Mm-hmm.
I was working that role 2 months shy of 3 years, so cool. 2 years and 10 months. I have a belief that if you're really called to do something, then and you keep ignoring it, the universe just has this way of pushing you out. And for the last 12 months, I just knew that I needed to leave that role. I knew I needed to get out, and I had no idea what I was going to do. But what had ended up happening, it was in January that I got a random phone call from a stranger that said, "I heard you run trips to India." He said, "Well, I run a charity, and I take people to India for my charity, and I want to see if we can work together." And I said, "Oh, that sounds great." And he said, "I'm going in April for 3 weeks, and I'd like you to come with me and run the trip with me." And so I went back into my guys that I was working for, and I said, "I'd like 3 weeks off in April." And they said, "Unfortunately, Brian's asked for 3 weeks off in the same time a week ago, and one of the business partners is out over that time as well. So we can't give that time off to you." So it sort of got to a point where I went, okay, now there's a decision to make. Which one's more important to me? And so with 3 weeks left to go, I walked in, sat the three partners down and said, "I've made a decision to go. My business is more important to me than the IT. And, unfortunately I've got to, I hate to leave you guys on the lurch, but this is where I feel I'm being called. So this is what I need to do."
Yeah, I see. And so did you, when you were working in that job 2 days a week, did you feel sort of, how much were you working on your business during the week, for example? How many hours were you spending on your business?
I found the job to be pretty demanding. Because there's the phone would just ring and ring. So and the other thing too was that I didn't realize at the time was the job was making me anxious. and I had no idea why. And I was second guessing myself the whole time. You know, things that fixing people's emails or internet connections that I can do in my sleep. I'm doubting myself. And that, both the combination of both those things really took a toll on me energy-wise. So although, you know, 2 days and sometimes 3 days a week, I was working for them and I was having 4 or 5 days off, I'd find for at least a day and a half that I just could not do anything on my business. I was just exhausted.
I see. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's something to be careful of.
I think I'm quite lucky in the way that with my part-time job, it's very stress-free. I just teach English online, and you know, you just turn up, kind of teach some kind of basic English, have some interesting conversations, and you know, it's easy money. And I'm living in Thailand whilst doing this, so I think that really it's quite a good opportunity to keep building my business in this way. Because I don't have those stresses, and you know, I don't have sort of like angry clients or stressed out customers or anything like that. It's very straightforward and simple, really. So yeah, no, it's good to hear. It's good to hear, you know, your side of that as well, and you know, how you manage that.
From the other perspective as well, what you said earlier, Nick, about you know, earning enough to be able to live, but then that kind of almost puts a pressure on you for your business to succeed, right? You know, if you were earning really a lot, so you could go on lavish holidays, then it might take away the focus from your business, and you might slip into those old patterns again.
It certainly did, and I think that was part of the reason why. That was part of the reason why I went away from my my initial mantra of offering people that time out, and you know, sort of trying to. I see all these customers or all these people around me who talk about wanting to just go on a trip and just travel and nothing else, and they don't want, you know, not interested in the time out. They just want to tick off boxes. And that problem was obviously twofold for me. It was taking me away from the true purpose of why I started the business, but also, yeah, you're right, Matt, having kind of going, well, I don't have enough money, and then putting negative pressure on myself to make that business a success.
Yeah, I very much relate to that as well. I think, you know, recently I've had changes I've been investing in property, and I've had some big disasters that have happened recently that have put a strain on me financially, and it's actually been a good thing for me. It's kind of put pressure on me to follow my passions and not waste time. So I mean, one of the reasons why I'm doing this now is because, you know, I've just realized I need to spend more time building something I'm passionate about rather than, you know, just chasing money. And yeah, having that belief that actually if other people have done it and made it a business and they're passionate about it, I can do it as well. And yeah, speaking to people like you, Nick, and some of the other people I'm interviewing, every conversation I have and all of these shares and things that we're relating each other with, that's giving me more belief, and hopefully it's giving you guys more belief that you can do this, and you know, people are doing it, and it's just constantly reminding yourself of that to move forward.
I think that, just pick up on your point just quickly there, Matt, I think the one of the things about, for me, I reflect now back on corporate, and it's about being surrounded, and you're surrounded by other people who are doing the same thing, the same job, in the same environment. So you start to convince yourself that there's nothing else is possible. Mm-hmm. So to actually offer, I think what you're doing is great. To actually offer you know, an alternative to people, and they can see, well, there are people out there. They're just not in my immediate circle.
I think that's one of the issues of being in the corporate world. you're not exposed to other people that are outside that world. And unless you take the time out, you know, I took 18 months out traveling, and I didn't realize there was a world out there. I didn't realize there was a world where people were traveling while working, where people were starting businesses that they were passionate about, like you are. And meeting people and speaking to those people, it just changed my perception of what was possible. I'm sure a lot of you guys who are watching this are relating to it as well. Patrick, do you have any questions? Because I know, you know, you've actually taken, you've now left employment after almost 20 years in a role, and really looking for some spark and inspiration of where to go in terms of your next decision in life, and how to find that passion path. So any questions for Nick relating to how to get you to your next step?
That's a very difficult question, Matt. I think a bit like I think Peter's the other person we've been talking to. I've spent 20 years working in sales, and it's I don't know if it's a common thread. It's but when we were talking about anxiety earlier on, it's for me, I think it's fairly highly linked to empathy. And even in the corporate world, it's amazing. It's everyone's looking for people that can empathise with customers, but then they, you know, put you in an environment where they put lots of pressure on you, and someone who's highly emotionally intelligent doesn't seem to be too resilient with stress and pressure. But the one bit I take away from everything I've done is I really do like people. I think I relate to people. Yeah, I do genuinely empathise with them. Coming back to your question, what would I ask Nick? It's it's probably in listening to Nick too, that he's not just offering a trip from point A to point B, but it's more about the experience that he offers them. And it's the experience, I guess I would define it, or to me it sounds like is his purpose. And it's like, how do you juggle the purpose bit with the business bit? Again, it's and I could sort of hear a common thread earlier on. It's about the not letting the business side of it overtake you. For me, honestly, as yet, I can't see the path forward as to how to make money. Like, I like people and I care about people, and I like helping people if I can. And by the sounds of it, you know, along the way, that's sort of what Nick intertwines in what he does. But I don't know if he's got any tips about how you mix, the business with the purpose and with actually sort of caring about the experience people have. I know that's a broad question, but maybe it's sort of, he's got some tips. I don't know.
That's a good question, Pat. Well, yeah, it's a big question though. I'm just trying to think what's, I guess, I mean, the first thing for me is realizing that there's a market out there for different products, and it's a matter of finding a market. Now, for me, like, I get great pleasure out of, I took away 5 women back in February over to the Headhunters, and just that pleasure of holding the space for them to feel safe as we travel along, you know, and sort of making sure that everything's just right, and making sure they're comfortable and all that sort of thing. And and the transformation that comes along with that's what I love. But if I tried to then offer that to someone who's after a cheap holiday that wants to pay $600 to go to China for a week or something, and they just want to sightsee, then that business isn't going to work. So I think it's a way, you've got to find a way, you've got to find what you love doing. You've got to find a way to a vehicle to deliver that. And for me, that's my trips. And what I love doing is really challenging people and challenging the way they think. And then you've got to find a market for it. So, and for me, that last bit was always the hardest thing, because a lot of people don't want, don't challenge how I think. I'm comfortable with who I am, but it's a matter of finding those people that want that challenge, that want to be taken to that edge, that are looking to explore who they are and to explore what they can change. So that's they're the three components, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And Patrick, what in terms of what you enjoy in life, what your passions are, forget about business. You've got to remember Nick spent over a year traveling, and he was enjoying it. He wasn't necessarily thinking at the start that he was going to turn it into a business, right, Nick?
No. This all started off with just a desire to travel long term, a desire to sort of see what happens if I challenged the way I thought that everything had to be planned. What would happen if it wasn't? What would happen if we just went traveling and we just enjoyed it?
Yeah.
And it started off as a curiosity. The question is, what are you curious about?
Yeah. So Patrick, what are you curious about? Forget about business. Forget about it. What are you curious about?
I really enjoy this online medium. It's and I genuinely care about people. Like I've had a number of years of sort of personal challenge, and that was what I was talking about in the post I shared with Holly the other day, was that I think I have a knack for empathizing with people, and sometimes helping open the door for them to see a way forward. And it's not sort of self-gratifying in the terms of big bank accounts, or it feeds my soul, just working with people and helping people. And people's journeys, it's it's just fascinating to listen to the fact that it sounds like Nick's interested in that too, but he's taking them on a personal journey while also doing a physical journey. The combination of the two is really mind-opening. But yeah, for me, it's and it really what is sort of like a side idea I've been having. But I instead of understanding human psychology for the purpose of getting someone to sign a 2-inch thick contract and pay money, it's I'm very good at what I do in understanding people, but it's just I'd like to be able to work with people for a different purpose other than lining someone else's pockets. But at the same time, I still need to live along the way too. So it's how do you care about people and really rub shoulders with people and understand people's stories and their journeys, and where possible, if you can facilitate positive change, how do you do that but still follow out of it at the same time? So
have you thought about teaching your skills, Pat?
Look, no, I haven't, Nick. My partner's a teacher, and she's actually from Chiang Rai, so it was interesting to hear that Matt's in Chiang Mai.
Oh, right, okay.
it's look possibly. I look at something like psychology, and it's about a 6-year course these days. So really long haul from start to finish.
But even like, just thinking out loud here, if you've got 19 years with a sales background, and you take someone like me who's sitting here going, well, I've got no, like, I really don't know how I sell. Like, I've had people where I've gone for coffee, you've seen the ad I put in a paper, and I've sat down with him and I've just talked, and he's just said, yeah, I'll go with you. But I've really got no idea formally what my sales process is or how I can do it. I think one of the things that I see out there is a lot of people teach a sales process, but it's very manipulative and very sort of what I'd term unethical on a lot of things.
You can smell it from a million miles away too.
That whole buy now and save yourself $1,000. Like,
look, it's pointed, it's contrived, and it's non-genuine.
Yeah. So could you take your experience and teach, teach people who are running a heart-centered business like mine to sell?
Yeah, absolutely. It's and maybe that's just the thing. I might be looking at throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's maybe I've just been selling for the wrong people that don't have the right purpose or ethos. Whereas if I align myself with people that I genuinely believe in what they're offering, I could absolutely help them regarding sales. Very good idea.
I think there was a lot of structure in terms of how Nick's gone about his journey in this call, and one of the things he mentioned that he said his mentor told him was action precedes clarity. And I think having a rough idea of the types of people that you want to work with that are going to make you happy, and you would want to get up in the morning and help them and serve them. What action can you take to get in front of those people and test those ideas? And one of the things that Nick did, one of his challenges was to earn enough money part-time so he could, follow his passion and build his business. And he spoke to a couple of people that about what he wanted. He wanted to do a part-time role, and his business was more important to him. He was very, very honest about it, and they said yes. He wasn't necessarily expecting those answers, but he got it. And I think, one of the key things in terms of next step is talking to people. Like, you're talking to people now on this call. You're talking to Nick. We're sharing with each other, and you're getting clarity from this call. And a next step would be to talk to more people and find out, get more clarity from that. And that action of talking to people will create answers.
Thanks, Matt. It's a very good idea.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to pick up on quickly on something you just said, Matt, and that's with regard to the part-time job. A lot of people sit there and say, well, I'm not going to look for a part-time job because if they wanted someone, they'd advertise. And I contacted 4 businesses, 2 of them that offered me a job. Both of them said, we're so busy that we can't even think about putting another person on. And what I did by calling them was made it so easy for them to go, oh, well, we don't need to advertise, we don't need to interview, and just give them the job. So it's often about thinking, outside the box a little bit.
Yeah, I've absolutely been thinking about my next step. I did already want to do something part-time to give me enough, or keep enough energy in reserve to work on what I really want to do. So I'm very, very clear on that. And yeah, but being a salesperson, I don't find it difficult to sell myself. Yeah, my fear was actually committing too much to something that's not giving me something back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think the circles that we're talking in, it's I think it's an area of huge potential. It's I heard someone quoting numbers in the trillions of dollars, just in terms of what the, say self-development, self-help sort of sphere is worth globally. It's you hear, like, I've been talking about anxiety or depression, and it's in epidemic proportions out there in the in the corporate world. And there's huge potential in terms of dollars. It's I grew up with in a family where self-development was pretty highly regarded, and the son of one of our family friends was, I think, the film producer on a movie they produced called The Secret, which was just talking about energy and sort of relating it to the corporate world. That one movie, I think, grossed like $300 million at the box office. So although I was asking the question about how you juggle passion and money, like there's huge groundswell out there for these sorts of businesses that do have purpose and passion built in, and ethos. Well, I say ethos, but ethics built into what people do. So I'm just trying to find my little niche. And I thank you. I thank everyone for their time today. I really appreciate just being able to listen and be part of it.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Patrick, and thank you for relating to others as well. It really helps all of us to progress in our lives and find more choices, find more options. That's what we want.
Yeah, don't give up, Matt. It's if you've lost money in real estate, just go harder in what you're doing now.
That's what I'm doing. Exactly. Thank you. Thanks for the encouragement as well. Okay, we're almost 90 minutes in. If there's any last questions from people who are on the line now, speak now or forever hold your peace. No,
I really appreciate the call as well. It was quite insightful, and it's good to hear that so many people are also sort of it's nice to know that we're all on a similar sort of path, and we're realizing the same things about how to make a passion-based business a reality. There are quite similar things that we're all doing in terms of reserving energy and not giving too much to the man and all that kind of stuff. So it's been really nice, and thanks a lot for everyone's input.
Mm-hmm. And just curious, Pete, what would you say you would have taken from this call that you might implement in your life? Was there any kind of things that Nick or Patrick or other people have said that that's going to help you move quicker towards your passion projects? And it might be a no, it's fine.
Yeah, I would say really it's just more, it's not necessarily about the speed, it's more about the consistency and the long term. Like Nick was saying, it's a long game, and you don't need to sort of worry that you're not getting there today or tomorrow, but that you're putting in the work each and every day to get a little step forward and to make, and to kind of and to push forward slowly and not put too much pressure on yourself. Like Nick made a good point about, someone that he knew that sort of moved to Torquay and spent more time surfing, and he was saying how on Tuesdays he had that pool club for him and his friends. And I think that kind of thing's really important as well, sometimes I work 7 days a week, I'm teaching 7 days a week, working on my businesses, and it's a lot of pressure, and it actually makes you less productive. I think, for example, at least taking 1 day off a week where I sort of purely relax and have a technology detox and, see my friends, go hiking and things like that. I think it's really important to sort of free up your creative mind and sort of take you out of that sort of high intensity technology sort of high focus environment, which can actually be unproductive if you're there too much. If you're staring at your laptop 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, you actually you switch off. You lose your inspiration and why you're doing it in the first place, which is a greater quality of life for you and everyone around you. So
I think, you're completely right, Pete. Getting that balance, like one of the reasons why people do leave their corporate role is to create more balance in their life. It's not just about passion, because there's some people who like you, Pete. You're a digital nomad, right? You've left the UK and living in Thailand. You've been living in other countries as well. But sometimes we still get trapped. We then work even more hours than we did before, and we and then we get that anxiety, and we get that that feeling that you had when you're in the corporate world, and it's like, well, hang on, I thought I got out of this world, but actually being conscious of, you can create balance. There are decisions you can make to create balance. There are decisions you can make to regularly meet friends, do pool clubs and meetups. When you go for a walk, speak to people in your local neighborhood, like Nick's been saying, and that all makes a massive difference to your happiness levels, and also thinking clearly, so you can focus on building your business, building your passion projects.
One thing I noticed whilst living in London is that it's very hard to get 7 or 8 hours sleep a night, and that's one thing that when you're working part-time and working in your business, you can really put more attention into your health and into things like sleep quality and exercise. And if you get to a point where you're overworking yourself to the point where you're staying up till 4 a.m. working on your business and waking up at 8 and things like that, that's going to have a big sort of detrimental effect in the long run. So I think that this kind of life where you're working sort of 3 or 4 days a week, or between 2 and 4 days a week, and sort of working your business the rest of the time, that kind of lifestyle is good for sort of long-term success of your business, I think. And like I said, taking it step by step. And so I mean, that it's nice to hear that other people also have resonated that same thing, that same method, I guess.
Yeah. Florian, I think you've just kind of made some comments about Nick, and also about being healthier in going out of the corporate world. Feel free to share if you like, and you can unmute yourself, I think, Florian.
Yes. Can you guys hear me well?
Yeah.
First of all, I want to express my gratitude, Nick, for speaking about your journey. I think it's super fascinating. And then that last thing that I think Pete was saying about the health in the digital nomad community, I am always amazed by how much healthier people are, how much more care they take of themselves. There's much more sports, yoga, vegetarian lifestyle going on. So I just came back to Chiang Mai from Berlin just about 2 weeks ago, and once again I was blown away just by the attitudes. And I think it's based on people just being happier, but of course it's also like a positive feedback loop that when you treat yourself well, you also stay happier. Whereas in places like Berlin, I feel like people just drink more alcohol, people tend to consume in unhealthier ways, both classic consumerism and just like smoking more, drinking more, whatever. That might also be a German thing, I'm not sure, but the contrast to Chiang Mai is just so fascinating. So I just wanted to highlight that in Pete's point again.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Florian. Thank you. Okay, guys. Well, we are definitely over our 90 minutes with Nick and with you all. So I'd just like to thank everyone for turning up today, showing up, sharing, relating. And Nick, thank you so much for just sharing your experience and from the heart, what your journey's been, and some of the struggles and some of the tips that you've given and the mindset shifts you've had. I've written some notes that I'm going to kind of post in the Burn Within group, some nuggets that you've shared. And any last words from you, Nick?
I just want to say thank you very much for having me on, Matt. And I think it's a great little project you're doing, inspiring others to make a change in their life. I think it's wonderful.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, we've got more shows lined up. There is one tomorrow, actually, tomorrow night in Thailand time. It's lunchtime UK, and it's Nick. Sorry, it's a guy called Barton Brent who's talking about his journey from being a successful real estate broker in the US to having a really tragic car accident where his whole life changed, and now he's running yoga retreats around the world and adventure motorbike tours. So if you can join that, and for the people that are watching on demand who want to join that as well, there's links in the Burn Within Facebook group. So thank you once again, Nick. Thank you, everyone, and see you on the next show. Ciao for now,
Thanks,
guys.
Matt. See ya.
Bye.